Freedom fighters, terrorists, the ultimate bad guy gun, the people's rifle. Today we're going to be discussing the most produced firearm of all time, the AK-47. Welcome back to the Average Guy Explains YouTube channel, your one-stop place for all the knowledge in the world that you did not need taught to you by a guy who's definitely not qualified to teach you about it. The AK-47, or more like the AK family, is a series of firearms that have seen usage on every single continent since its inception. It has been involved in every single armed conflict from Cold War era Korea and Vietnam to the modern day conflicts with Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Palestine. This is a weapon that if there is an armed conflict, you can guarantee it will make an appearance. But what is an AK? And why is it so prolific? And why, despite being a firearm that is over 80 years old, is it still the predominant weapon in armed conflicts? Well, today we're going to dive into the history of the AK. So grab a drink, sit back, and maybe I'll teach you something. All right, to understand the AK-47, we have to go back in time a little bit to the year 1947. So the world is recovering from World War II. The Cold War starting to heat up a little bit. Joseph Stalin is, well, being Stalin. And meanwhile, in the heart of Russia, there's a Soviet tank commander and engineer by the name of Mikhail Kalashnikov or Kalashnikov. I don't really know how to say it. I'm from Tennessee, so I'm going to say Kalashnikov. Was designing a weapon that would change the world. See, Kalashnikov was a soldier in the Red Army in World War II, and he got wounded. While recovering in field hospitals, he often heard his comrades talking about how unreliable Soviet weapons were and how much better the German weapons were. And Kalashnikov decided, well, I'm an engineer. I got nothing but time on my hand. Let me design a gun and maybe I can solve this problem. So he went to work, and after many trials and tribulations and failed experiments, he finally settled on his magnum opus, the AK-47. Or the Avtomat Kalashnikova Model 1947. It's Russian, okay? I don't speak Russian. So Kalashnikov's design and idea was, let's create a weapon that is simple, cheap to make, accurate, and robust. The weapon had to fire fully automatic, it had to fire semi-automatic, it had to feed from a detachable magazine, and it had to be reliable in all conditions, sand, rain, and mud. And he did it. And this is when you enter the era of the assault rifle. Fun fact, the word assault rifle is a term thrown out a lot in modern day media to describe weapons that technically don't meet the definition. You see, for a weapon to be an assault rifle, it has to meet a couple criteria. A, it has to be capable of select fire, meaning semi-automatic and fully automatic. And B, it has to fire an intermediate cartridge. Now, I hear you. You don't know what an intermediate cartridge is. Don't worry, I got you. I have a visual aid. You see, before the era of the intermediate cartridge and the assault rifle, you basically had two kinds of bullets. You had full-powered rifle rounds, these big old honkers capable of reaching out there and touching you. And then you had pistol bullets, which low recoil, not a lot of power, but they don't have the ability to really reach out there. And so what we needed was the middle. We needed a round that was the best of both worlds. So let's take the low recoil of pistol bullets with the range capability of full-powered rifle rounds, and voila, we have intermediate cartridges. See, it's in the middle. Intermediate rounds. By the 1950s, the AK-47 started popping up everywhere, from the jungles of Vietnam to the sands of Africa to your creepy uncle's basement. Everyone wanted to get their hands on one, and thanks to the Soviet Union's mass production and policy to distribute them to friendly regimes and insurgents and pretty much anyone who said they hated America, the weapon found itself all over the globe and was given away for basically free. It became the go-to choice for freedom fighters, revolutionaries, insurgents, bad guys, pretty much anyone who couldn't spend a lot of money on weapons, and with a cost to manufacture averaging around $200 per gun, that is a very, very low cost to kill ratio. And the AK took the world by storm. It was a cheap, inexpensive, and reliable weapon that pretty much you could do anything to and it would still work, shy of throw it out of an airplane, but might even work then. Fun fact, the AK-47 is actually a pretty rare gun to find. Now, hold on, I heard you. You're like, but hey, you just told us it's the most prolific gun ever and that they made a bunch of them and that they're everywhere. Yeah, but most AKs that you actually see in the world are not AK-47s, they're AKMs or AK modernized. You see, shortly after the design of the AK-47, they came out with a cheaper way to manufacture them, and those guns are called AKMs, or the modernized AKs. You see, the AK-47 featured a milled receiver. Now, that's where you take a solid piece of steel, like a big square, and you have to mill out or cut out the pieces that you don't need so that you can build a gun. Whereas AKMs feature stamped receivers, which is where you take a flat piece of sheet metal and then you fold it or stamp it in place and build a gun that way. This brought the cost down, it made the guns lighter, and it did nothing to affect the reliability of the weapon. The impact of the AK changed the world of firearms, and it changed every single military's weapon of choice. The AK was the first commercially successful assault rifle. Now, I heard you. Oh, but the Germans technically built one in the... No. Stop. Quit simping for the bad guys of history, okay? They built a gun that kind of worked, but it didn't work good enough because they lost the war, okay? So the Russians built the first commercially successful assault rifle. Now, the AK featured some design choices that are still prevalent in modern day weapons. It fired semi-automatic, fully automatic, it fed from a 30-round detachable box magazine, and it required no tools to take the weapon apart to clean it out in the field. These are things that modern day assault rifles still abide by to this day, and almost every single developed nation in the world issues their army with assault rifles as the main weapon. With over 100 million AKs estimated to have been built in the world and more being built every day, the AK is still the most dominant assault rifle ever made. But the AK's rise to fame wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. You see, the gun's accessibility meant that it often found its way into the hands of less than bueno amigos. From the sands of Africa to the mountains of Afghanistan, the AK became a symbol of resistance. It was the people's rifle. And unfortunately, oftentimes it is predominantly used by evil regimes, such as Middle Eastern terrorists, African warlords committing genocide against their own people. It just became the bad guy gun. Now, that doesn't make the weapon itself inherently bad, but, it is the bad guy gun, movie villain, leather jacket, eye patch, AK. It just is what it is. But here's the thing. The AK's popularity is a double-edged sword. While, yes, it has gotten into the hands of less than savory groups throughout history and has been typecasted as the bad guy gun, it's also a symbol of freedom and resistance for the good guys. Israel used them in their War of Independence. They're currently being used by Ukraine defending themselves from Russian aggression. It has always been the people's gun, and I think that's kind of what Kalashnikov originally designed the gun for. It was the people's weapon. It was a cheap weapon that it didn't take a lot of technical know-how to get to work, and they were really cheap to make. And anyone can figure out how to use one in a couple of minutes. It's a revolutionary gun. And while it has been used by bad guys, it's also been used by a lot of good guys. In the 21st century, the AK's legacy is alive and well. Sure, it's gotten a bad reputation, but in the past 30 to 20 years, it's seen a resurgence in love and admiration from Western audiences. In America, the AK is slowly climbing up in popularity again. I mean, look at Brandon Herrera, the AK guy. His channel was founded on AKs. I mean, it is a very, very popular gun. Now, I know there's fancier, lighter, more accurate weapons out there, but there's just something about the raw, gritty nature of the AK that is alluring to people and attracts new customers every single day. Fun fact, the AK series of rifles has received many upgrades over the past couple of decades. Long gone are the days of the wooden stock and wooden front end AK like up here. Not that that's not totally awesome. And we're in a new era of AKs, the tactical AKs. They have all of the modern creature comforts that a modern assault rifle should have. They have rail systems, retractable stocks. Now you can attach all of your cool lights and lasers and suppressors and scopes and red dots and everything you want to attach to them. Although at its core, it's still mechanically the same gun that Kalashnikov designed way back then in 1947. It just has received a little bit of a facelift. But that wraps up the history of the AK, and it has seen a lot in its life. And whether you hate it or love it, you can't deny its impact on the world. From the AK-47 to the AKM to the AK-74 to the Draco to pretty much every AK ever built, it is here to stay. It came on the stage strong, and it ain't leaving anytime soon. So I'm sure 100 years from now, when we're all flying around in our hover cars and we're defending the Earth from the alien invaders from Mars or whatever it is, rest assured one thing. If there is a conflict that is going on in the world, the AK will make an appearance, as it always does and always will. But that's going to conclude today's video on the AK, and I hope you learned something. If you did, leave me a like on the video. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for watching the videos that I'm making, and I hope to continue making them on more interesting and strange topics. Let me know what you think in the comments about AKs. Are you an AK? Have you ever seen an AK? Do you own an AK? Is your grandfather half AK? I don't know. Let me know. But until the next video, as usual, thank you for your time and take care.